Hi guys, thank you for joining me on my Plant 3D to Unity workflow for visualization. So, so today, exactly as to what you probably guessed what this name of it is about, is that we're going to be discussing how to actually transfer our data from the one to the other. Now, this is just going to be like an intro crash course. Don't worry if you don't really have too much of experience in Unity at the moment. Like me, I just picked it up and started beginning with it. So, on our merry way, just a little bit about myself. My name is Quinn Kennedy. My email there on the screen if you require it. I'm an application engineer, part-time to Tick of the World. Yes. Here at Micrographics, specifically at the Durban branch, but this is wherever I'm required. So, a little bit about our agenda for today. So, I intro, which we are busy currently doing, importing our model from plant via 3ds Max, importing the plant model via the Navisworks, or unit, and then some Unity basic asset setup. There's actually one very small thing we have to do to get it to work, but I'll explain that when we get there. And then setting up a controller and taking it for a bit of a spin around so we can try and do it. There is one thing I have forgotten off here, which is just a little bit of an outro and QA afterwards. But we'll get, we'll get to that in a second. Okay, firstly, I don't really like to do death by PowerPoint, but if things do go a little bit astray, I do apologize. But here to be dragons. And also, we've got hardy doors. If you don't know what a hardy door is, Google them. You'll understand why. Yeah, they can be very noisy birds. I do apologize about that, but they're currently going nuts outside. Okay, that being said, firstly, we're going to take a look as to importing our models via 3ds Max. And one of the very first things we have to do with this is we have to know that when we are exporting, we're going to want to export out to using our AutoCAD out function. Now, this can be the reason being for this is what if you don't do this and you just go AutoCAD out, it generally drops your XREFs. So we're going to first bind our XREFs and then use our AutoCAD out. So moving swiftly along, we're going to go into our Plant 3D file. This is where it really does help to have an NVMe drive or SSD drive because, yeah, it does significantly increase your speed of your workflow. So in my Plant 3D, I'm going to open up my main model that I've been using. So in the model, these ones over here, oh, actually at the moment, I think they are, nope. So 1 second, I'm going to quickly extract this one back in. That's why. I'm just going to quickly purge the block out. The problem is there, the reason why it's not wanting to insert it because it already has it as a block, so it's losing its mind a wee bit. Set it back in. There we go. Okay. So now we've got a X-ray. So I've got these little tanks over here, and if I click on one of them, you can see that the external references palette is open. So if I was to try and export this, this would generally give me a few issues. Just remember, this is via the 3ds route, not through the Navisworks route. So with this, I'm going to have to firstly bind this drawing in here. So I'm going to select on one of these. Doesn't matter which one, as long as it's in the XREF itself. I'm going to right-click and just say external references. You could type XREF if you know the command, or go via the command, the ribbon. But generally, I just prefer to right-click and go XREF because it brings it right up. You'll notice that you've got all of your XREFs that would be loaded in here. What you're going to have to do is you might want to create a separate drawing for this in your plant project so you don't accidentally overwrite anything, or otherwise just don't click save until the end. But that's up to you. I'm going to right-click on the one and say bind Now you can either use bind or insert. They're basically going to do the same thing. It's the difference is the way kind of how it handles the layers. It's going to both insert it as a block, but the bind one will create unique layers for everything. So if you've had a layer on layer 1, for instance, and your drawing has got your original drawing does already have a layer 1, what bind will do is it will create a kind of like $ layer 1 $. So you still end up with separate layers where insert will merge any layers that are common between both drawings. I'm just going to use bind for this one. Doesn't really matter what you're doing. And you'll notice that as soon as it brings it in, like I said, it brings it in as a block reference. Now, that is all I really need to do for you on the plant side. Well, apart from exporting it out, should I say. So I'm going to go, well, should I say in the prep work? My apologies. Export to AutoCAD. It's a command you type in. You can type it down here in the command bar. I just normally use my dynamic mode, so it's easier. So we're looking for export to AutoCAD. You're going to click it. It's going to ask you, do you want to save the file? Yes, we do want to save the file in this case. And I'm going to save it to... I'm just going to overwrite this file, which is this one over there, and hit save. Okay, doesn't like me doing that because it's already existing. So let me go 02 and save. I should have thought of that because it's already loaded into the project. Okay, now it's successfully exported to the AutoCAD project file. Cool, 100%. If we go and we actually search things, and we go to our testing folder, 3D models, we can actually see the file there, and I can also open it up, and it should be fine. Okay, now that our model is loaded up, you can see it's fine. There's no breaks, anything. More importantly, you want to try and click on something and just go into its properties, and you'll notice everything should be broken into block references. There's no actual details of the parts, etc. So unfortunately, in this case, if you're wanting to go this route, you are going to lose any data you've got on your piping, etc. Going to go then to going to now go basically, and we're going to now bring it into the AutoCAD side. Sorry, not AutoCAD, 3ds Max side. Jeez, I'm getting myself confused today, it seems. So in our 3ds Max, as soon as I launch it, and it decides to launch, on our 3ds Max side, as soon as it loads, on Eternity letter. Yes, on a 3ds Max, thank you. I'm going to switch mine to a single viewport because I'm a bit strange. Now we have to actually bring our AutoCAD drawing or 3D model into 3ds Max. To do this, we're going to go to the File, Import, Link AutoCAD file. Oops, I missed that. We have to then first find this in our system, which I kind of know where mine is sitting. Oh, wait, I went to the wrong one. I just know where I've buried this into my history. Now we've got our model that we want to do. You can go open. Okay, mine is a little bit twitchy here. Firstly, I'm just going to tell mine to rescale to make sure that it's in its millimeters form. There are presets here, and if you take a look, I've been looking at my presets over here, and I've been trying to create a preset for Plant 3D based on the architectural preset. This one you probably, well, almost guaranteed not to have. Because what this will do is it will try and take a look at the AEC objects embedded in it and bring them in. But for the Plant 3D, I'm afraid it doesn't work. So what I've been trying to do is simulate that, but no success as of yet. So all I'm doing is showing you as to what these presets are currently. If you're just doing it normally, you just use the drop down. Make sure that you say DWG save from AutoCAD, which should be the default option. Check the defaults for rescale. You can cull layers out if you didn't want them in. I'm going to just say attach this file. Like I said, this is just an overview. We're just wanting to try to bring this stuff in to our Unity from our plant. Nice. Okay, as you can see, it's brought it in. I can close that. Let me change my view to just the default shading. Cool. Now, in our in our 3ds Max, we could go and we could do all of our texturing, etc. in here and that. The problem that I've found so far with bringing it into Unity is to try and get the textures across correctly. That's a little bit out of the scope about what I'm wanting to show you here. I'm just giving you a little bit of a heads up. For instance, Unity can actually bring in, can actually open the 3ds Max model straight, the .max, which you can open up straight from Unity actually. But I've had some issues with it, with texturing, etc., and some other issues. But I've also had issues with when you export it to an FBX file format. You do have another one which I've actually had a lot more success with, which is using the export game exporter function. This is up to you how you want to work with it. It's going to be up to your processes, however you're working. For here, I'm actually just going to take the quick and easy route. I know not normally the best route, but I'm just going to go save, and I'm going to not save on my scenes file. I'm going to save it in the same folder, resources. And I am going to put in my Unity folder, 3ds Max, my testing that I've been playing around with. And I'm going to call this 01, save. Like I said, normally you would do all, of course, with the texturing, etc. in this. I'm just saving this as a plain old .max file. And believe it or not, that's all we actually had to do for the 3ds Max side for the import-export. Now comes the fun part. I'm going to go to Unity. In Unity, okay, mine's a little bit out of date, but it's not too bad. I'm going to go to my new project. In my new project, I'm going to go, okay, it is going to be a 3D project name, whatever you want to call it. So we can say maybe new Unity project 001. I know I'm being very inventive here with my naming structure. Just check my naming where the location is. Yep, that looks good. It's the same location as my current project. This could be anywhere on your drive, and go create. So now what I basically have done here is I've created the project that my model is going to be sitting in. So just remember, Unity is a game development engine, and all we're doing is we're taking our lovely package, whatever we've done it in. And by the way, this is not just for Plant 3D. You could use it for quite a few other different programs, such as Revit. I've seen some architects using it, and to quite great success, because although a lot of these tools integrate a lot of nice little features, especially for walking around and giving people visualization, it's very difficult to compare that to an actual game engine which is designed for people to navigate and walk around it, the stunning scenery that can actually be done with it. Okay, now that our Unity project is open, I'm going to be, by the way, using the same project as well for my Navisworks section as well, so I'm not going to redo that work again, because we've already got it, might as well use it. Okay, that being said, now that I've got this lovely little folder open here, I'm going to go and I'm going to say, okay, now how do I get this file in? You've got two, well, you've probably got more options, but the two major options I've seen is drag and drop. So you would literally navigate to your folder, find the one you want, you can drag it, and you can drop it into your assets here at the bottom of the assets. I'm not going to go too much about the user interface here, but for the main part, what we want to do is you've got your window that we're going to be working in, and assets over here, and then your subsections below over here in your hierarchy. And this will be determining as to where we're basically placing things. I'm not going too deep here into the project folder, etc. We're just skimming over the basics to get you started. Okay, so that being said, like I said, you can go drag and drop it here into your assets section, and this will load it. Or you can go assets, import a new asset, and import it via here. And you'll notice if I go import, it's going to do its importation thing. This would be the exact same if I dropped it in. It's thinking, it's thinking, it's thinking. This may take a little while, depending also on your hardware. That is a major factor here. But yes, it is going to be busy for a few seconds, I'm afraid. There we go. It's almost done. And it's basically in here. Now to add it to our scene, all we have to do is drag it and drop it into our scene palette over here. As I'm scrolling out, you may notice that this thing looks very large, or it's very difficult to zoom around. That's because if we click on here, you probably have noticed that we've got a scene section over here. This I'll get to a little bit later. Because firstly, I want to cover as to how we're going to get the Navisworks side to get to the same point. So when I'm in normal AutoCAD, sorry, not normal AutoCAD, Plant 3D again. Now, this does mean that you're going to have Navisworks, of course, installed. If you don't have Navisworks installed, I'm afraid you're not going to be able to do this, obviously, because you don't have the capabilities to do it. A big problem that big mistake that a lot of people normally do here is once they'll try and sometimes install Navisworks and then AutoCAD, and what it hasn't done is it hasn't put the plugin into it, and that creates issues, to say the least. Because the thing that we're going to do to get this drawing out is we're going to use a command called nwc out. Now, nwc out. Now, for the fact that if you've installed something like Navisworks first and then AutoCAD Plant 3D, you're not going to have this command available. So if you don't see this command and you do have Navisworks installed, and by the way, by Navisworks, I'm meaning Navisworks something I can manage, because if you're using Freedom or something, I don't think this is going to work for you, I'm afraid. So we're going to use Navisworks out. Oh, sorry, NWC out. And now this is going to push a NWC file out, and then we can open that into Navisworks and then export that as an FBX file format. So just one thing to also note here you don't actually need to get rid of your external references. So if I were to delete that and save, then purge all items. I'm a little bit of a worrywart to always make sure that I save early and often. Just going to export this one in. So you can see that's now an X-ray. The cool thing about doing it via the Navisworks route is that when you do the NWC out, it's also going to take your X-refs with it. So you don't have to worry about them. I'm going to get rid of that. So I've got the 3D001 NWC. Actually, let's just leave it as that. On test, I'm going to put that into my Unity. And let's put that into the Navisworks. Save. Yes, it's asking me to replace it. So all I've done now is I've exported the NWC directly out. Now I'm going to go into my Navisworks Manage. as soon as it's done loading up. There we go. Now that it's done loading up, we're going to go and browse for our NWC file. Just a pro tip here, by the way, don't do what I sometimes do and try and look around and can't find the file. Make sure that your file type in Navisworks is changed to an NWC file type. Now, because I've been testing and playing around with this thing to make sure that it works, I have actually created a subfolder called Navisworks, and I'm already there where it needs to go. Sometimes it will bounce you to wherever your last location was. Just make sure to navigate to the NWC exported file that we got out of our plant file. So now that I've got my NWC, as you can see, it's a Navisworks cache. I'm going to go open, and it's open. Oh, one big important thing that I have to state here is that when you're doing this, make sure that you're not going, make sure you don't accidentally close plant down before opening up Navisworks Manage. Now, this is a big thing because if you close it down and you try and open up Navisworks, sometimes bits and pieces will be missing. Things like your joints, tanks, and certain elements that are normally as the AEC objects files. The reason being for this is because the object enabler in AutoCAD Plant 3D sometimes gets a bit confused. It doesn't work so lacquer, and then it just doesn't translate that information through correctly. So make sure that you've got the Plant 3D model open, the one that you did the NWC export from, and then also open it in Navisworks Manage. Once the Navisworks Manage one is opened and everything's okay, we can then close our Plant 3D model because then everything's been brought across. We know that it's working correctly. I do know it is a strange thing to do, but bear with me here. I've done it a few times, and yeah, it drives me a little bit up the walls because I always keep on forgetting I close plant first. So that being said, now that I've got my model here in Manage. Now, normally we do use it for exactly what you probably understand by its name. We use it for like project management. We can use it for visualizations. We can do quite a bit with this tool. In fact, it's one of my favorite Autodesk tools because it's so versatile what you can use it for. In this case, we're just using it as a springboard. You can, by the way, also, if you go to the rendering, not a well-known feature, but if you go to render, click Autodesk rendering, you can also apply some of the different textures and materials from the library directly into your model. So this being said, like I said, I'm not really covering that type of stuff in this. It's just how do we move it across. But when you do bring it across, you are going to have to do a little bit of a jiggery-pokery inside the actual the Unity folder to try and get the textures correct. I'll talk about it a little bit more in a bit. For now, to bring this in, what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to go to our, oh yes, click the application icon, export, FBX, and now it gives us a whole whack of information. So this was my attempt to try and get it to work correctly. I'm afraid, yeah, that's not really making my life very helpful. Normally we just use embedded, but this was trying to get it that it exports the files correctly. Normally you would have it on embedded, but the rest of this you could generally leave as by default. I'm just going to click OK on my FBX options. So this would be basically a default. And then I'm just going to export my 3D001.fbx file. Now that that's exported, now what I can do is jump back to my 3ds file. Sorry, not 3ds Max, my Unity folder or file program. One of those, yes. Now that I'm actually inside here, now we can start doing some more interesting things. Because now I can actually bring in my Navisworks model. And with the Navisworks model, like I said before, if we go to our folder, go to Navisworks, we can either drag and drop this in, or we can do the asset import again, as we did for the first one. For this one, I'm actually going to show you can just drag and drop it in. Now, remember I was talking about the textures and stuff. So generally when you bring it in like this, you're also going to want to bring in the textures folder, everything with it. You can see there is my lovely little drawing. Now watch what happens when I bring this one in. See, I dragged it into my scene. You notice how small it is. Now, I did hint at this just now. That is because this, if we click on it, you'll notice the scale factor is set as 1. And convert units, 1 millimeter, the file is 0.001 meters in Unity. So what you're going to have to do here is you may need to go 0.00 and hit apply. Oh, okay. So that was me being not so clever because I accidentally left that one on and I tried to basically do it to the wrong system. So what it's now doing is, what we're trying to do is make sure that 1 millimeter file to 0.1 meters Unity. So I need to change this file, just clicking on this file over here. So this would be our 3ds Max one. I know I should have labeled it a bit better. But in here, I'm going to go 0.001 because obviously 1 millimeter to 100 millimeters. Apply. You'll see it will rescale. The reason why I didn't do it properly previously because I had the wrong file selected. I had the Navisworks file. I'm going to select the second file. I'm going to make sure to convert the units. 1 millimeter file to that. Nice. Okay, so that should also be fine. So 1 millimeter, yes, okay, that should be okay. Nice. So now the files are really small and far away. I'm just going to zoom in there. And you can see both of our drawings are now nicely together. So now they should be correctly to scale. Okay, that being said, there's one little other piece of the setup. Like I said, there was something else that I wanted to show you guys here first, just to make sure that you can actually use this. And the reason being is what I'm talking about here is to actually use it, is that if you were to try and walk around or you're trying to do anything on here, such as the next thing that we're going to discuss is actually putting in a controller. Controller being a FPS controller, so a first person controller. You can also put a third person in if you want to, but generally people would use the first person here. But that's just for just now. What I'm talking about is if you were try and put something down on here and try and use it, you'll just fall straight to the floor. Anybody who's played computer games, you probably have noticed clipping where you fall to the floor and it's highly annoying. Same thing happens here and we have to be aware of it. So how do we prevent this? It's actually very simple. All we have to do is select one of our objects and make sure that generate colliders is on. That's all we have to do. Just make sure that little guy's on. When you hit apply, it's going to analyze the model and it's actually going to generate the colliders. This means, as you may have guessed by its name, if you collide into something or if you touch something in that, it's going to stop the object that you're currently navigating with from actually accidentally intersecting or breaking off. I'm going to do this with both of them just for in case. Okay, now that my colliders have been generated and applied, and you can see my lovely little plant that I've got over here, now I'm going to talk about my next section. And my next section being as to, this all looks fine and dandy in that, and what a lot of people will do is they'll go, okay, cool, now I got my plant, let's hit the play button. The play button, by the way, is what starts it so that you can kind of like run your level. And you'll notice I'm looking around, but I can't do anything yet. That is because what I've just discussed just now is we need a controller to actually drive it so we can run around, we can do things. That can be quite a daunting task, especially the first time I looked at it. I looked at it and it was the case of, okay, cool, I'm going to try and do everything myself. And I went into the tutorials and I learned how to program a controller. Believe it or not, you can actually program your own controller. And it's quite rewarding. It teaches you a lot. But a lot of us, we don't have time nor the ability to go and do this. So we want to do things the faster and sometimes smarter way is to look at the asset store. Now, in the latest versions of Unity, in the 2020 releases, unfortunately, 2020.1, as you can see over there, asset store is being removed completely online. So if you do click the asset button, we were in the scene, but on the asset side, it's going to ask us, do you want to search online? I'll get down to this in a sec. We're going to search online, and it's going to bring up our Unity. And now, if you were already logged into Unity before, it will automatically log you in as well. That's what was taking so long, was logging me in. As you can see, I'm actually logged in over there. So now that that has been, now this is active and I can actually use my Unity store, what you want to do is you want to actually search for a controller. So you can normally look for like an FPS controller and go through them. There's quite a few of these. There is one I do recommend actually, which I find quite useful. What I've done, by the way, is I've just used my account and I've gone to my assets because I've already found one that I thought works quite well. And here's a controller by Aiden Graves. I really hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Sorry, I clicked his name and not the controller itself this time around. So it's a first-person all-in-one controller. It does a whole whack of other things, way more than we'd probably ever require. And like I said, it's by Aiden Graves. He's done a wonderful job with this controller. I have to give him a double thumbs up for this one. And yes, so once we've browsed to the controller we want and we find it's really good, I do, by the way, really recommend taking a look at this. Taking a look at it, give him some good stars there, give him a nice rating and reviews. Please do. But once we've done here, we're going to go open in Unity. It's going to ask us, do you want to open in the Unity editor? We can go open link. It may look a little bit different on your side if you're using Chrome or another browser. I'm using Firefox at the moment. And yes, so depending on which browser you're using, this is what you're going to see. Okay, now once you've loaded up or you've opened up the asset, the package manager will open. If you remember, I was saying I was going to talk about this section in a sec. So this is Open Package Manager, and it opens the Package Manager screen over here. So this shows me all my different little ones that I've got at the moment that I've been playing around with. And as you can see, I've got a whole whack of different stuff. I've got like these industrial props. I've got another controller that I was playing around with. Not that it's bad or anything. It's just I'm not the smartest tool in the shed, so I was trying to still figure out how to use that one. The Space Navigator, because I've got a space mouse, just some characters and standard assets that I've been looking around and playing with. So that being said, in our package manager, we've now got our first person all-in-one controller. Now on your side, you'll probably see that the download option is available and the import is grayed out. I've got the other way around because I've already got it. I don't need to click the download. Of course, when you click download, it will download into our assets. I'm going to import it. So it imports from the program and it imports all the information through into my current project or my scene. So now it will take it out and embed it into this scene's assets. One eternity later. No, it's actually not that bad. It's quite fast. Okay, I will say that this is an entire pack. So there's a lot of things in here that you may not need. So just like a lot of demo stuff and a lot of stuff that is actually included with it that will help you. You can pull out just this first person AIO and then move it to the top, but it does create a slight issue with the reticle. For now, for what we're doing, we're not going to be too worried. Okay, so now that I've gone and I've brought in my first person controller, I'm going to need to now get it into my system so that I can actually use it. I'm just going to click scene again so I can see what I'm doing. Now you'll notice that in our assets folder, or assets over here at the bottom, we've now got a new folder, which was the first person AIO pack. Then we do have a README and a whole bunch of other stuff, which I do recommend going through. The thing we're actually interested in here is the first person AIO, sorry. And you're going to click this funny little cube. Now that is the actual object, and it's got everything already pre-applied to it. He's done quite a good job at getting all that nice stuff in there. This is, by the way, the code that actually drives it. I'm going to select it, and I'm going to drag it into my scene. And you'll notice as soon as it's in, I now have my little character. And you'll notice the character looks like a little pill. That's actually normal. A lot of the guys actually code like this. This was the way I learned to do it in the beginning as well. This is just like a temporary little box, and you can actually put this into whatever you want. For now, we're just going to keep it as this little pill form. The most important thing is it's got our everything bound to it already. This is just a drag and a drop, and we're done. We don't have to go too deep into this. Now, believe it or not, we're basically done. This is all we needed to do to actually apply this in, that we can actually get this to work. Now that I've got this, I'm just going to save, because yes, that's normally when you've got when you don't expect things to go wrong, that things will go wrong. So I'm going to hit save now. You'll notice that's not visible because I don't have them selected, but I'm going to go up to the top here, and I'm going to hit play. Now, if you've done everything correctly, as you move your mouse around, you'll see that you can look around. And if you use your W for forward, S for back, A for straight left, D for straight right. Thank you very much. Sorry, that was my hardy-do in the background. Please do ignore him. He does make a lot of noise. As I was saying, so we use our W for forward, S for back, A for straight left, D for straight right. Now, if you're a computer gamer, you probably recognize these are the general movement keys, and if you're probably aware, this is a computer gaming engine. If you hold shift down, we can do a quick sprint, and we can take a look around. So this is our plant. We can actually have a good view around what is going on here. I do apologize if I am moving around a bit. Now, yes, it is very rough. This was just to give you guys an idea as to how to bring it in and how we can use it. The nice thing about this is it gives a complete different sense of scale of a plant and a different way of actually interacting and looking at it. And here you've seen it's been done right in front of you. I've went through it step for step. This you can do a lot more with it. You can then take it on. You can take it into, you can put your textures in, of course. You can make it look a lot prettier. You can make things work. You can even put movers and elevators and all sorts of things with it. More animations, more effects. It's up to you. And also, very importantly, you can also take this and put it into VR, which means you can give a person a complete VR experience inside you with not as much difficulty as you may think. One thing I would like to point out, and this was one of the last topics that I just wanted to cover here, is some general tips, tricks, and stuff, is that you'll notice, you probably have noticed that 3ds Max was way faster to actually get it in here. Though, of course, we had in 3ds Max, we've got far more control, and it's easier to make things just look a lot better. Whereas in Navisworks, one thing I didn't mention was this faceting of the pipes and stuff. You can kind of get rid of that, but Yeah, it's not the easiest thing to do because I mean there are ways basically inside it that you change the face count, but yeah, that to me has not worked so well sometimes. Generally, I prefer the 3ds Max route because I've got far better control and I can do a lot more with it. But if you're just trying to get it into Unity to start working, make it look good, the Navisworks route works brilliantly. Cool. Well, that was basically how we can get this thing in here. I'm just going to jump back to my slideshow. So give me 1 second. It's just giving me a wee bit of fun to try and get this thing in. Okay, thank you. Oh, goodness, sorry, it was jumping around a bit and I wasn't wanting to do it. So I just really discussed about our controller and taking it for a wee bit of a spin around. Now, a little bit about our outro, and just before I begin with the QA side of it, um, the actual industry that is growing, especially in, as I just mentioned, the VR scene, is tremendous. It's amazing to see as to how far the industry is growing, especially with things like the Oculus Quest 2 that's recently been released. I mean, it's a VR headset for, if you go for the big one, I think it's 399 US dollars, which may sound like a lot of money, but when you compare it to some of the others, that is an order of magnitude larger in price. It is quite phenomenal as to how much cheaper it is. And quality wise, it is almost on par actually with the more expensive sets. What this has now done, oh, and it's also mobile. It contains one of the most actual advanced chips out there on the market. Well, that price, it's actually amazing. All I'm trying to get down to here is that these, what you're seeing and what is now being presented and given to people is now blowing open the doors. If you can now take your plant 3D models, bring it into Unity, and then also take it further into a virtual environment, you've now got the ability to put a person who's in the opposite side of the world into your plant and say, hey, this is how it looks. This is how it will look when you're on site. In the beginning, we had a drawing board, and it was difficult to relay our 2D views and 3D to people because we're 3D people. We work with it. Then we went to AutoCAD, which made our lives easier, but it was just still a 2D version. Then we went to things like Inventor, Fusion 360, Rivets, Plant 3D, which gives us the 3D models. And although they do give us a lot of capability, now in the next step where we can now go into our maybe VR systems, we can make our lives even better by actually, like I said, putting a person there in the scene. And if you've not used VR before, don't know what you're missing, you need to get somebody to let you experience it. And yes, so thank you very much for joining me. That is just the basics of how to bring this stuff in, set things up a little bit so you can actually take it for a spin and start using it and see what it is. I really hope you do fall in love with the technology. I have. It's one of my favorite things to play around with. Thank you very much for joining me. Is there any questions? Please give me a shout. You should have there at the bottom of the TeamViewer window, there's a little chat window, and you can click there to send any queries or anything. You may also need to push the little chat button in the top section of the chat first. Sorry, if it hasn't deployed the little chat feature. Okay, guys. If you do have any queries or anything for me, please don't hesitate. Give me a shout. Here's my details again from Micrographics, Quinn Kennedy. There's my email address. I'm an application engineer here. My specialty is actually Plant 3D, hence the reason why I wanted to show you guys about this Plant 3D into Unity. And otherwise, if you are in other places of South Africa, we do also have Johannesburg, Cape Town, Port Elizabeth, and of course Durban, which is where I am. If you need to get hold of any of us, please contact us via the info mails. Otherwise, get hold of me. Thank you very much. I hope you have had a wonderful time. Hope this has helped you a bit. Have a great day. Thank you, Jose. Bye. Aldred. Ally. The Aldred you have dialed is currently not streaming. Please try again now. Aldred. You should be able to speak. I haven't muted you. Goodbye. Thank you.